Before we get to today's episode, let's talk about something so many writers I coach run into. You're in the middle of your first draft. You have more ideas and material than you know what to do with, and it's hard to get your arms around all of it. Maybe you're stalled, or you can't quite find the story inside the mess. Most of the time, there's a weak link in your story's foundation. I made a free resource called the Story Clarity Worksheet. This helps you find exactly where your story foundation is solid and where the gaps are, so you know exactly what's missing and what to do next. Go to nancypanuccio.com/clarity to download yours. nancypanuccio.com/clarity. Okay, on to today's episode. Some writers give a lot of thought to what happens in their story and who it happens to, but all you need to start is your reason for writing it. What's pulling you? What are you curious about? What are you trying to understand about the world and your place in it? Your characters and your story is a container for that. Writer Unleashed is for you, a writer who has a story you want to bring onto the page and into the hearts and minds of readers. I'm Nancy Panuccio, writer, editor, and book coach. Each week, we'll explore techniques, mindsets, and inspiration for writing stories readers can't put down. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Now, let's begin. My grandmother once told me she thought it was amazing how novelists could write from page 1 and just keep going. Like the story arrived fully formed. Like the writer simply sat down and it all flowed out in order seamlessly from beginning to end. Now, she wasn't wrong to think that. That's what a finished book looks like. It looks like the writer had a story in their head, sat down to write for a few months, and presto, there it was, ready for the bookshelf. But we all know that's not how books get written. And I think a lot of writers are carrying around the same assumption my grandmother had, that it must have been easier for the writer. They look at a finished novel or memoir, polished, seamless, every scene is in its right place. Everything is unified, cohesive, and they compare it to their own messy, uncertain beginning. And when their early attempts don't feel like that finished book, they conclude they're doing it all wrong. Or they become so paralyzed, they don't even know where to start writing. They don't feel ready yet. I hear that a lot. Writers who have a story they're burning to tell, characters they can feel, a world they're beginning to imagine, but they can't start because they don't feel ready, because they don't know enough yet, because they're waiting until they have more figured out. Or they start and then they go back to revise the beginning over and over and over because they think that's the way books are written from beginning to end. And if they don't have the beginning right, then what? But here's the truth. You're probably never going to feel ready. And you're not going to know enough until you start writing. And waiting until you have it all figured out so you can start on page 1 and keep going is exactly what's keeping you stuck. Ray Bradbury once said something to the effect of, doing is everything. If you walk around thinking all the time, you'll never do. He also said that the intellect is a great danger to creativity. When you think too hard before you write, you start to rationalize. You're not in your dream space anymore. You're not receptive. You're not in the flow. Your intellect is getting in the way. You start to manufacture reasons why you're not ready to write this book. You start to mistake planning for progress. But the story doesn't live in your outline. It doesn't live in knowing everything you need to know about your story before you write it. So today, I'm going to give you 3 things you can do before you outline, before you structure, before you feel ready that will tell you more about your story than any character sheet or plot beat sheet or world building document ever could. Because what you need to start your book is to rely more on your instincts. So let's get right to it. Number 1, free write. The best thing you can do before you start your book is free writing. It's also a great warm-up. So this is not a draft. It's not an outline. Just write without censoring yourself, without worrying about whether it's good, without any expectation that it has to be brilliant. Free writing is a great way to lessen the resistance, to loosen the resistance. It's the best warm-up I know of because there's no pressure attached to it. You're not writing for a reader. You're not writing for an agent. You're writing to find out what you have. It doesn't even have to make sense. You can write in fragments. You can repeat the same thing over and over and over until something else loosens up. Just write. It's a great practice to stop censoring yourself, to stop thinking too much. Just write and then read it back. You'll find gold in there. You'll find images and words and fragments and even moments that surprise you. Circle them. Those can make it back into your book. One specific version that I like to use in free writing is what I call word clusters. When you're trying to world build or describe something or someone and it's not coming, stop trying to write it. Instead, just write all the associations you have about that place, that object, that character. Everything that comes to mind without editing, without organizing, without worrying about whether it's even useful. The goal is idea generation, not an outline, not polished sentences. Let your subconscious be the guide. What you'll find is that the associations you have about something are far more interesting and vivid than any description you could manufacture. The words are specific and they're yours. And they'll tell you things about what you're driven to write that you didn't consciously know yet. This type of free writing is like an excavation. You're not building something from scratch. You're uncovering the images that come from your unconscious, from your dream space. The goal of free writing is to let go, to not grip the writing so tightly, to lose a certain amount of control. Okay, on to number 2. Write 3 scenes. Now, sometimes writers will ask, how much do I need to know about my story before I start writing it? Some writers give a lot of thought to what happens in their story and who it happens to, but all you need to start is your reason for writing it. What's pulling you? What are you curious about? What are you trying to understand about the world and your place in it? Your characters and your story is a container for that. This is the one that changes everything. So don't start with an outline. Don't start with a plot beat sheet. Don't start with a character description. Start with 3 scenes. Not just any scenes, the scenes you're most pulled to write. Specific moments, specific images, things that excite you. They don't have to connect. They don't have to be important plot beats. They don't have to occur in any particular order. They don't have to belong to your beginning, your middle, or your end. They just need to be 3 scenes, 3 specific moments that you're driven to write. They have to be real and meaningful to you. So write where the energy is. Follow your impulse. Follow what excites you. Doing is everything. And if you're walking around thinking about what you should write instead of writing what pulls you in, you'll never start. So write the scenes you're most driven to write, slow down inside them, probe these moments. Don't think about what a reader would want. Don't think about what an agent might like. Stay focused on your own enjoyment, your own curiosity, your own impetus. Stay focused on what's real for you. The point isn't to produce something perfect. The point is to write something true. Okay, on to number 3. Once you've written your 3 scenes, look for the common denominators. Read back your 3 scenes and ask yourself, what do they have in common? Look at the tone, the mood, the characters, the imagery, the relationship dynamics. What question are these scenes circling around? Look at what keeps showing up, what you keep returning to without consciously planning to. Here's what you'll find. Those 3 scenes almost always have something in common. A character, a relationship, a way of seeing the world, a question or problem they're orbiting around. Something you did not consciously plan. So don't overthink. Trust your instincts. Trust your impulses. Those common links between your 3 scenes is what your story is probably about. Not the plot, not the premise, not the high concept. What you're actually interested in probing about the world, about relationships, about human nature, about yourself or your past. That's what's pulling you toward the story. And that's what will sustain you through the long, messy work of writing it. If you're an outliner, the outline you build after these 3 scenes will be a completely different document than the outline you would have built before them, because it'll be built around something real, around what you actually care about, around the reason you wanted to write this story in the first place, beyond the plot, beyond the structure, beyond what you thought you were supposed to write. If you're a discovery writer, this is a great way in because it's giving the impetus you need to start. What you find in common in all 3 scenes is likely the heart of your story. And it was there all along. Now, a lot of writers focus on plot, or they need to have the structure in place, how and where the story starts, what happens in Act 2, how it all ends, etc. But you don't start out with a plot or even a structure. An understanding of structure helps, but it's more a way of thinking your way through your story as you write, so you're not getting too far off course. Plot is different than story. Plot is what happens externally, but story is who it all happens to and why it all matters. Story is penetrating attention to what the external events all meant. And you don't need to know in what order things happen before you write. You'll never get clarity until you start, until you're deep in your work in progress. So, if you're stuck before word 1, if you feel like you don't have enough figured out to start, or you keep going back to your beginning and rewriting it before you even move forward, you don't need to have everything figured out. It just doesn't work that way. No writer starts out having the whole story figured out before they sit down to write. Even if they have an outline or they've mapped out what happens, once they're writing, things inevitably shift. You'll have a different opening sequence. You'll shift the emphasis on certain characters. You'll move things around. You'll cut the excess and shape your scenes. So you don't need to wait to feel ready. You just need to start writing, because clarity doesn't come before the writing. It comes from the writing itself. It comes from continually looking at your material to find out what the story is trying to become. So here's what to do instead of waiting or starting over and over again. Number 1, free write. No censoring, no pressure, no audience. Just write to find out what you have. Use word clusters when you're stuck on describing a place or a character. Write every association you have and let your subconscious lead. This is always a good practice to get used to tuning into your own mind without censoring yourself as you write. Number 2, write 3 scenes. The scenes you're most pulled to write. Specific moments, specific images, right where the energy is. And number 3, take your 3 scenes, then look for the common denominators. What do these 3 scenes have in common? That link is what your story is probably all about. Ray Bradbury had it right. Doing is everything. So stop thinking and start writing. There's plenty of time to think after the act of writing. You don't have to get it perfect. You just have to get it going. Your story is waiting. It's up to you to go find it. So there you have it. Thanks for hanging out with me today. If you know any writers who need some support in their writing, please share this episode or the Writer Unleashed podcast in general. And if you love what you're listening to, subscribe on your favorite listening platform. And if you're listening on Apple, please leave me a review. Reading how this podcast impacts your writing truly lights me up and helps me create topics for the show. Till next time, keep writing, and I'll talk to you soon.